All right, let's find out what's happening in the global economy space now. We have Willie Bonga with the details.
Hi,
good to have you, Will. Yeah, so we did get that event. Investors were waiting for that event for one of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah, but
you know, when they have such kind of release, you know, definitely investors shake. And it seems investors were not really happy.
They were not really happy with that.
What we saw yesterday.
Definitely.
That's talking about Apple. So what's playing out there?
Yeah, before we talk about Apple, I just wanted to talk about Larry Ellison. He's closing in on Elon Musk, you know, for the title of world richest person there.
Whoa, I thought that was my title. What happened?
Larry, I did. So that's why I said let me start with it, because I know that you have been, you know, in competition with Elon Musk for quite some time now.
So they're both overtaking me.
Yes, they are overtaking you right now. So, you know, the company Oracle posted, you know, a $70 billion, you know, profit yesterday. You know, they announced that revenue yesterday, and, you know, we saw, of course, investors, you know, will want to cash in on that, and that is taking him head to neck, you know, with Elon Musk right now. So I don't, you know, Musk must be, you know, shivering where he is, not like wondering, I need to do something.
Maybe Elon is not worried.
Oh, you sure?
But who knows?
Like, just look at it. But, you know, still, Laddie mentioned about that Apple launch yesterday. We're talking about how the impact, how will this impact, you know, consumers already, talk of the markets that we already have for smartphones and the rest of them, and the, you know, right now, inflation biting. Can, you know, consumers really, you know, afford this? Our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird, joins us to discuss this. Maria, good morning. Apple, you know, unveiled its iPhone 17 lineup with new designs, bigger storage, and we saw higher prices. What have reactions been like?
Well, you know, Americans are always looking for that next big launch from Apple. Every fall, we see around a launch similar to this one. This one, as you mentioned, it's 3 products that have been released. The iPhone 17, obviously, is the largest item that's been released. There are already lines for this product. There's already back order in some places for this product. And so what we've noted is that it's really about the sleekness of this new product. People are yet to know exactly get the consumer response and feedback on the usage of it, but there has been much anticipation for it, as there is every fall, and people are excited to hopefully see that this product could potentially again have another transformative effort in place, especially in the mobile device business. And as we know, the Apple Watch has also been a huge product that has been very well received by consumers. And then the AirPods. One of the big pieces here is that the noise canceling features on headphone devices has been a huge part of kind of the trend around headphone devices. And so the expanded use of the noise canceling feature is one that obviously consumers are looking to see how well that will do. Many people today are sitting in coffee shops working, and so these are key and critical for those types of individuals.
But Maria, we saw Apple shares drop yesterday after that launch, and critics say the upgrades you mentioned feel incremental, meaning they have some new features you just mentioned, but nothing revolutionary or groundbreaking. Does it seem like Apple is falling behind in the fast-moving AI race when compared to its competition like Samsung and Google?
Well, you bring up a very interesting point around Samsung and Google. Those have always kind of trailed behind a little bit with Apple. But obviously, as you mentioned, with the boom of AI, with many people, you know, entering the tech space, and many of the consumers are now open to trying new products. And so that, I think, is where we could potentially see a challenge. Again, when you talk about the number of products available, kind of the hype around the product, I think we're still in that moment. But what we'll hear back from consumers, I think, is going to be key and critical to the viability of the long term of especially this most recent product, the iPhone 17. And if there's the consumer feedback does not, to your point, kind of have that revolutionary impact, we could see some of those other products such as Samsung and Google to see a spike in their potential. So, and as you mentioned, the stock price is there as well. And what we do know is that we've seen some back and forth. A lot of times on the first day of a release, you might see a slight spike, but you can also see a really quick decline. And so I think what we're really looking at is over the next week to 2 weeks, how Apple fares out in the stock market, which would be a better indicator of how the products are doing.
And so with iPhone 17 starting at, $799 and storage and prices rising on Pro models, do everyday users feel they're getting value for that money, especially with inflation that is, ticking up as we see it?
Well, one of the very interesting things here in the United States that's been very key and critical for the mobile device, obviously, as we know, all across the world, mobile devices are kind of the everyday way that people communicate. But many cell phone companies here have created plans. So many people kind of pay every month on their phone. So I don't know how much people really understand, to your point, the price point of the Apple device. Many people are not paying for it out front. Many people are tacking it on to their cell phone bills. That's an every month charge.
So Apple, we know, generally has captured about 18.7% of global smartphone shipments, look at data, and holding over 25% of market share globally. Do you think these new models will help solidify its market position, considering that we've had that decline, and especially with Trump's tariffs on chips and other, imports from other countries?
So, as you know, Apple CEO has been very vocal in this area, especially around the cost of the chips. We also know, as you mentioned, kind of the global trade wars that have been ensuing between the U.S. and various very large companies across the countries across the world, specifically those that could be partners with Apple, and where the Apple product has grown in popularity and obviously usage. And so that is going to have an impact. I think what you're really looking at is we're looking to see whether or not Apple's going to be able to sustain some of its production overseas, and whether that will allow them and leverage them to be able to sell the product overseas without kind of having to deal with some of the tariff challenges that obviously are in place. And so where we're really seeing the greatest challenge around tariffs is the price point, as you've mentioned, on the Apple products here in the United States, because there are so many pieces of the device that are not developed and manufactured over here in the United States. So that is where we're seeing the greatest challenge. Obviously, the company has been very clear on the fact that they knew this would potentially be a challenge, especially for this fall launch. And so they've been very intentional to see how in which they can ensure that the global markets that use the product are able to continue to have the same type of growth. But again, as you mentioned, we've seen some challenge there, but I think we really have to look at the next week to 2 weeks to see really what the long-term projections are.
Oh, thank you so much, Barry. I will definitely look out to see how investors and possibly consumers, receive this. And let's say good luck to Apple. Thank you so much, Maria, joining us from Washington.